Welcome back to another Epidose of these crazy people that just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. Thank you for watching or listening to the video. We are Meat Mosaic, which might morph around from week to week, but some of us are always here. If you like a discussion about meat-based diets, you found the perfect channel for you. We put out videos 1, 2, 3 times a week. We like to elevate the conversation and break through the binary arguments that often divide people. I try to get one long format video out a week and one short format video out a week. We call those the short ribs. So they're anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. Occasionally they run a little over, but the other long format videos are usually at least an hour. So our goal is to help people who might be helped by a meat-based diet. If you're interested in the meat-based diets, people's recoveries from all sorts of conditions, then this is definitely the channel for you. So please subscribe to the channel, click the like button, hit the little alert bell, send links out to people who might enjoy it or benefit from it. And today I'm going to let Justin tell us what we're talking about. What exactly are we talking about today, Justin?
Yeah, so today, in the intro, we talked about elevating the conversation. So what does that mean? What is our spin on that? Why do we feel like the conversation needs to be elevated? So for me personally, keto, carnivore commentators, podcasters, nutrition commentators and podcasters in general, it's an ocean out there, and there's some sharks, there's some little fish, there's some big fish, there's some medium fish, and as we know, there's always a bigger fish, right? You got some heavy hitters, you got some doctors, then you got some other people that have no business whatsoever talking about the things that they're talking about. If you follow Bart K and look at his channel, he'll point those people out to you on the regular. But yeah, and so elevating the conversation to me means bringing this information in a way that is logical, consistent, as scientific as we can be, because not all the science is out yet. It's kind of a new field, especially when you get into carnivory. We just had a study come out earlier this month. Was it the Harvard study, right, Tom? Is that it?
I'm not sure which one you're talking about yet.
It was the survey from Sean. It was a part of MeatRx before it became Rivero.
Oh,
there was all of us participated.
Yeah.
My answers are in there. I believe yours as well, Tom, is in there. And there were some, again, it was a survey, it's epidemiology. It's basically at one step above anecdotes, but
is it?
Well, I think just by volume, I think an anecdote is usually just one person. So it is a step above anecdote.
It's a compilation of anecdotes.
It's a compilation of anecdotes. Yeah, there you go. But I mean, even still, it has some pretty good stuff in it. I think it is an average of 80% of remission, recovery, or just improvement in some sort of disease state. So I think that's really promising. There's all kinds of neat stuff in there. So hopefully we can drop the link in the description box and send it over so people can have a look. That's one part of elevating the conversation, is bringing new science. Whatever new stuff comes in, we usually try to find the newest study and things like that. And we're always working throughout the week to find good stuff to bring, or new podcasts and things, ideas. But on top of that, it's bringing it, like I said, also the logical part. So being consistent, right? And so there are people in this community that, and I'm not saying, and nothing we say here is calling anyone at what they're doing is wrong. I just think it's kind of inconsistent. And I've seen people kind of struggle when they start dipping into things like metabolic flexibility and keto flexing, so it's oh, but you're going to lose the ability to burn carbohydrates or something like that, or, oh, you don't want to be in ketosis too long, or the gluconeogenesis, you're going to,
Great
raise,
boogeyman.
you're going to raise your blood sugar too high and give yourself diabetes by eating too much meat and fat.
Right.
It's just like, okay, we know that this is good for us, anti-inflammatory. The way to have the flattest blood sugar possible is to eat only meat. It's like, at what point, how does that become harmful, or how does the narrative just suddenly switch? It's things like that, and we try to clear that up for people. Some of it's using a bit of science, some of it is using our own data on ourselves, some of it is just, hey, we've been doing this for a while now, and we know people have been doing it longer, and this is their health only seems to get better the more consistent and the more they stay on the path of carnivore. And then other stuff. So I was talking to someone earlier today that was really concerned about diabetes, and he went off the reservation some, and he had more sweet than he thinks his body can handle, and it kind of made him sick and nauseous and dizzy and things like that. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, so people think, so carnivores will fail a glucose tolerance test. We will fail it. So for those that don't know what a glucose tolerance test is a doctor will literally give you, I don't know the grams, but they'll give you literally a chunk of sugar, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's like 200 grams of glucose or something like that. It's a large bolus, as they say.
Right, of glucose. And basically, if your blood sugar goes too high, or it looks like your insulin response is not aggressive enough, you have some kind of metabolic dysfunction, basically.
Yeah,
is the
because
theory. And
if you're already insulin resistant, your body might be, or your pancreas might be pumping out lots of insulin, but it's not bringing down the sugar because the cells are resistant to the insulin. Whereas if you're low carb, no carb, carnivore, or whatever, your body's generally not used to cranking out that much insulin, so your insulin response might be a little bit slowed. So your glucose levels might stay high longer, but that's not in everybody, but it does happen. And of course, most of us, we would expect to not feel so good if we ate a bunch of sugar after not having any for a few years, so.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things that is like, oh, look, there's a problem, but it's like, it's your body acting naturally to a disrupting force in the body.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you caught a cold and you got a fever, something's wrong with you. It's like, yeah, I have a cold, my body's fighting a virus. It's the same thing, except for some reason when it comes to diet, nutrition, we constantly can't help ourselves but to always flip everything around. Like it's crazy weird. And that's why these arguments about nutrition go on for what feels like it was quite possibly might be eternity, because it's really hard to pin down solid science, because we are an open system and there's many different variables. And we do have slight variations in how each of us respond to different foods, different reactions, from straight out allergies to micro allergies to headache, stomach issues, and even things that can take months. Tom's talking about with eczema that the what is it, antibodies can stay in your body for 3 months, right?
Yeah. So like in the case of like psoriasis or maybe eczema, it's an autoimmune disease. So your body's reacting to something and it's sending out antibodies to kill off some sort of infection. And in the case of those particular disorders, the antibodies are attacking cells in your skin, like the cells that make new skin and stuff like that. And so it'll cause overgrowth and stuff like that. And whatever triggered it may have come and gone, but those antibodies are still circulating for quite some time. So you're still seeing a physical manifestation or a very, very noticeable symptom of the reaction long after the whatever it was that triggered the response is gone. So it could take a long time to figure out exactly what triggered it. It's a slow process. And I think that's oftentimes why it's not understood. Like for an individual, they just give you medication. The doctors just give you medication to try and manage it. Right. And a lot of those medications are very expensive. And a lot of them, they basically are suppressing your immune system. Right. So they leave you open to other infections. Right. Or they can allow infections that your body's suppressing to start to flourish. So that's a dicey thing, and it's tough it took me a long time to figure out what was going on. Literally years, years of self-experimentation before it became obvious what was happening.
Yeah, and that self-experimentation is, cautioned against in the beginning, but once you got a couple of years under your belt, you can kind of pick and choose and really see what really affects you, what makes you feel body feels good. And so when it comes to elevating the conversation for me, I like to focus on what we know. So what we know is when the body has too much carbohydrates, aka sugar, in the bloodstream in the body, that's toxic to cells, and you can even get cell die-off, i.e. diabetes, metabolic dysfunction, what have you. We know that when you mix fat and carbohydrates, you activate the Randle cycle, turning it into triglycerides, storing it in fat, increasing fat cells, causing systemic inflammation, because you look at any typical meal, you're mixing carbs and fats on the standard American diet. We know that plants have anti-nutrients, cytokines, fibers, oxalates, lectins, all these kinds of different little nasty monsters that can be disruptive to the human system. We know that a vegan diet doesn't have fat or very low fat. And we know that the human body needs fat to run. The brain is mostly fat. Your most important organ, arguably, is mostly fat. And so it just doesn't make sense. The diet, your body's gonna grab that fat and grab that protein from somewhere else, yourself. If vegan long enough, you kind of just waste away because you don't have the protein to build. You're not having the fat to run the hormones and things like that in the body and all the different processes and energy. B12, again, something missing in plant-based. So that's why the vegan diet, yeah, there's people that in the beginning, they seem to do well because they're getting away with a bunch of processed stuff. They're not activating the Randle cycle. They probably are going to lose some weight in the beginning, feel kind of good and stuff like that. But long-term, a vegan diet is just not sufficient for human functioning. And people, 80% of people go off vegan within like 5 years, 8 years, something like that.
Yeah, I think the number is something like 87% in the first 5 years, and the number one reason cited was catastrophic health failure. So
yeah, and so what are we left with? So it's like the vegan isn't going to work. You can't mix carbohydrates and fats. We know the standard American and processed food is bad for a number of different reasons. So, and there's only 3 macronutrients to play with. You take all that
unless
together,
you drink a lot of booze.
Unless you drink a lot of booze, right? The 4th macronutrient. What choice do we have? Really. And to me, it just, once I put those 4 facts in front of me, once I knew about the plant toxins, learned about the Randle cycle, I had already tried plant-based earlier in my life and was still sick. Did get a little bit better, but it was nothing miraculous. Okay, it's carnivore. It is. I don't know what else to sell somebody after that point. I really don't.
Yeah, so for me, I like to say that we've all been victims of bad information. And we were literally inundated with this idea that meat, particularly red meat, saturated fat, was bad for us. It was causing heart attacks, it's probably causing cancer. And now they say it's ruining the planet, and so on and so forth. And we've been, we've heard that from day one. Our parents heard that. I mean, it really started in earnest probably in the 50s, that when it started, 1950s, when it started becoming said frequently. And I like to point out that a lot of that information came from, well, Ansel Keys comes up all the time, but a lot is promoted by the Seventh-day Adventists, who are, not all of them are vegan or vegetarian. Some are eat fish or eggs or something like that, but they are essentially a religious cult, and that idea comes from this supposed prophet of God, Ellen G. White. So if you're of that faith and you believe that's true, then that's your reason for adhering to it. But they promote a lot of pseudoscience and a lot of studies that are kind of misleading to sort of push that. And they aren't necessarily real open about how it is religiously based. And prior to that, if you look at the Indian religions, and I'm sure everybody's aware of sort of the 60s hippie movement, bringing a lot of that Eastern philosophy and religions to the United States, or to the West in general. There was this, I don't know, 2000 years ago, this decided, oh, eating flesh is bad. It's bad for karma. It's bad for whatever. There's a large mixture of philosophy, religion, and what I would deem as just superstition that promotes this idea of eating plants over animals. That being said, I don't think we evolved to eat the plants. More than 10,000 years ago, nobody was planting wheat. And even 10,000 years ago, very few people were planting wheat. Crops like that just weren't available. Corn was a crop that was cultivated in the Americas, but not Europe or Asia to any extent. So we just didn't have the time. Even if we all started eating all that stuff 10,000 years ago, we still wouldn't evolve to it. And the edible plants just weren't available in the environment. I ask vegans all the time, so what plants did we eat before modern agriculture, before the plants that we eat now, the ones we've made less toxic? Or a lot of the plants we eat have to be detoxified, so, and they're arguably not that great for us. When you compare red meat to almost any plant source, it has superior nutrition, and things like amino acids. They're not only there, but they're there in the correct ratios along with fat. And it seems very clear to me from both the archaeology, the biology, even the physics of it, when they look at the isotopes of nitrogen and the carbon isotopes, it's very clear what we evolved to eat. We left it in our trash pits. We painted it on the cave walls. We left the fossilized remains of the bones of the animals that we ate, the bones that we cracked open and ate the marrow out of, the brain casings that we cracked open and ate the brains out of, all the way back into deep antiquity, right? And so learning that after having grown up, being told that, red meat's bad for you, to give you a heart attack and might cause your cancer and everything. Yeah, I get it. It's a tough pill to swallow. And I don't really want to alienate vegans or vegetarians or plant-based people, because, there's been so much overwhelming conversation about how you should be plant-based for all these reasons, from raising your vibration to saving the planet to living longer or not causing harm to another creature or whatever. But none of that is natural. None of that has anything to do with being an animal or a human or part of this ecosystem. Or it's all sort of these bizarre constructs to make somebody feel better, like make them feel like they're doing something better. And they're really not. At the end of the day, they're fighting their biology, they're creating sickness. And so that's what the conversation is about. It should be about. It shouldn't be about beating people over the head because they've been inundated with the same information and not had the opportunity to see the evidence to the contrary, right?
Yeah. And hey, we were all there. I mean, pretty much
For sure.
90% of the carnivore community is people that were vegetarian, vegan, or low fat, paleo, what have you. And some more than others, some less than others. The lucky ones are the ones that come from keto that, like, you know, you do get the occasional person that was like, oh yeah, I was keto 15 years before I was carnivore. It's like, okay, you're certainly ahead of the curve. Okay, we get it, you know. But the yeah, you know, whenever you get here, we'll be ready for you. And you know, this isn't easy. There's unfortunately a lot of the processed foods addictive. You know, it's built to be as tasty, as overwhelming. I mean, way above what your brain and taste buds can handle. You know, it's chemical changes in the brain, and you know, Chips Ahoy cookies, and we did that episode, right, where we went through the children's cereal advertising, right, from the 60s and 70s and stuff, and all of us had emotional reactions to the different little cartoon characters, you know, whether it's Trix Rabbits, the Lucky Charms, Leprechaun. So Tom's checked out. He's decided that we're just gonna have fun and not do a show anymore. It's okay.
No, I was saying delish, right?
Oh, that was delish. Okay, it just sounded like random screaming. I didn't hear the delish.
Oh no. Yeah, I don't know. Trying some new sound effects. See
there we go. We're upgrading the conversation and upgrading the show.
That's
so there
right.
you go. You know, these emotional reactions to these characters, these little cartoons, you know, and starting from the age of what, I mean, we probably all start watching TV at age like 4 or something, right? So probably. We're watching these commercials of these foods, planting in the back of our head way before we can even speak, or right when we begin to speak, right? And then, you know, and then the mothers are taught to just, oh, you know, you're taking your kid to the park, you should bring along some Cheerios in case they get hungry, because they're bite-sized and small.
Cheerios, goldfish crackers, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so you just grow up that way. The moms or the dads think they're doing the right thing because it's not a crying child or anything like that. You know, oh, the goldfish is, you know, better than bringing the Oreo cookies. You know, that's what's thought, which I think on some level it still is. But, you know, it's a real about face from our upbringing for 99% of us. And, you know, whether or not you have a vegan in the family or something like that, it's still like you're going, you know, it's a holiday time over here. We just got done with Thanksgiving. Christmas, Hanukkah's going on right now. It's the first day of Hanukkah. So Hanukkah words to you. I don't know the correct. Why? Where's Amanda? Amanda should be here. I wish you can tell us.
She didn't come. Where's
what the correct thing?
Where's our kosher co-host? She didn't show up.
I only know Mazel Tov, but I don't think that has anything to do with Hanukkah. And so it's the holidays, and so Thanksgiving, I went over to my aunt's, and you know, she kept trying to offer me Brussels sprouts, and I kept telling her no. And there's a big wave of people eating Brussels sprouts now, and I don't get it. Like, I thought Brussels sprouts was a joke vegetable, you know, on every TV show, like, ew, Brussels sprouts. You know, everyone loves them, and I don't know why. And there was stuffing. Oh, it's so horrible for you. But I used to love stovetop stuffing, like, until I looked at it, it's like high fructose corn syrup. It's pure, just like a mash of different grains. And so, but I would eat, like, I think one year I must have like ate a pot of stovetop stuffing. Like, that stuff was so good to me. That and mashed potatoes and the Hawaiian roll. I mean, horrible. Like, this just. And, that's seen as like a home cooked. I don't think a Thanksgiving meal has ever been seen as a healthy meal, but I think because it was home cooked and with the family, it was seen as a as a health meal, in that it wasn't fast food, right? Because
Right.
the American culture or Western culture had moved so far. By the time I was growing up, the 90s, more or less, we had moved so far away from home cooked meals that Thanksgiving meal was a special meal and appeared healthier because it was a home cooked meal, when in reality, so much healthier would have been getting, 4 lettuce wrapped doubles from In-N-Out, ironically, right? And so, I mean, what is it? Canned yams with the marshmallows in them, the melted marshmallows.
Oh, they come canned that way, huh?
No, they don't come canned that way.
Oh,
I was just, for some reason, canned yams came to my head, but you take, sweet potatoes, also known as yams, and you
put
melt
the brown sugar on them
brown sugar and marshmallow on
because
it.
they're not sweet enough, even though they're called sweet potatoes, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. I mean, and I know technically a yam and a sweet potato are slightly different, but whatever.
Right. And so that being as a special treat, and it's just crazy the way we eat. Sorry, I just always trip on what people normally eat now.
Yeah.
Like, it just blows my mind. I just can't comprehend eating with other people and just watching them eat.
Look, last night I was at the store and I was checking out. The cashier's like, "Oh, how you doing? How's your Thanksgiving?" And I was like, "Oh, it's good, you know." And then I was like, "How was yours? Did you eat lots of turkey?" And she's like, "No, I had lots of sides because I don't eat meat." And I kind of snickered, and I should have asked her. I said, "Oh, why did you choose to stop eating meat or not eat meat? What is it, philosophical? Is it religious? Is it a health reason or what?" And I didn't even think about engaging her and asking her those questions till after I left. And then I felt like a dick. And I'm like, I didn't do a very good job of elevating the conversation. So if I get a chance to do it over, I will. I'll do it differently. I want to hear the people's story, right? Why they made that choice. Are they really worried about their karma?
Yeah, it is curious. It's interesting being in this space. I think we forget to talk to people. Not that we forget to talk to people, but like, we don't expect people to be like, "Oh, I don't eat meat." It still surprises me, because I'm in this space now, and it's like, I moved on. Why haven't you?
Yeah,
Was she
it's like,
younger? Was she like younger than me?
I don't think so. She's probably, I'm guessing she was your age. She could have been younger. She was wearing a mask. It was hard to tell. It's just, she kind of, I don't even think she was a cashier. I think she was a manager. She was just covering a check stand or something. But yeah, I regretted the opportunity to engage her in conversation and find out more, right? Because I'd like to know more. And of course, at the same time, I'd like the opportunity to tell people that the opposite is true, that there's people who just eat meat, which is, not as well known. I mean, by this day, everybody's heard of vegetarians, vegans, and plant-based, right? So
Raw vegans, fruitarians,
breatharians.
Yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing is, we try to reach out. And so there's someone that's an old friend, a college buddy of mine. She's struggling with her weight and things like that, and complains about it, or posts about it rather, and how so hard it is to stick to a diet and keep working out and everything. And I send her my way and stuff like that, but
Right.
people just aren't ready. I think carnivore is still kind of an idea whose time hasn't come yet.
Well, and of course, everybody's hung up on their weight, and it's like you start talking to somebody, and you're like, "Yeah, you're overweight, but you've got asthma, high blood pressure, you're pre-diabetic, and your ankles are swelling, and your knee hurts, and on and on and on." And It's like, but all you're really worried about is your weight, it's all you're worried about is a number on the scale, right? And that's another thing about elevating the conversation is not focusing on the number on the scale, but actually talking about body composition. I mean, knowing that what your weight is isn't really something you can measure against a chart, right? So, but the end game for most people is to be leaner and have more muscle because that's the way to live longer. Of course, some people are already too small or too lean, and they need to put some muscle on, some fat on, stuff like that. But most people are fighting the other side of the hill, as it were, right? And that's another part of it. Don't just talk about weight. Talk about, hey, I would like to be leaner. I'd like to be stronger and stuff like that. Cause that's really the goal. And that's really the thing to focus on, cause no, most people, most guys, let's say, no matter how many steroids they took and how much they worked out, they're not going to look like a Ronnie Coleman or a Arnold Schwarzenegger or something like that. Right. And same thing, most women, no matter how much exercise they had or how much human growth hormone or surgeries they have, they're not going to look like some supermodel. It's just not realistic, right? But what is realistic is finding out what diet works for you. And the best diet for you is the one that works. And the best way to get good results is to adhere to it, right? So the real thing is creating the habit of eating in a way that you feel better and that your problems subside, right? And your body starts to heal itself and you have less pain and inflammation and your mood's better. That's the real conversation, right?
Yeah, and one big part of that, which I feel like our channel touches on more than other channels actually, and I'm thankful for that, is sexual function, sexual
Right.
happiness, you know, for men and women. And there's a lot of marriages out there that are sexless, sadly, right? And so, or affairs and things like that. And it's like, maybe if they were eating the right foods, their mood would get better, their sexual desire would come back, your both of you would become attractive or more attractive to each other again, hopefully to each other, at least increase that chance, and that spark might come back,
Yeah,
you
it's
know
it's shocking how many people's sexual function improved or came back after they changed their diet. So, and not to harp on the vegans, but there's been quite a few vegans who are like, "Oh my god, I ate a piece of steak, a piece of salmon, an egg, or whatever," and like, I had my first erection in I don't know how long, or for women in particular, they're trying to get pregnant, and they can't get pregnant, and they change their diet, and lo and behold, they get pregnant, So, your body's going to fight those functions if I mean they're kind of put on the back burner when your nutrition's off for a long enough period of time. You've got all kinds of other problems going on, right? So
yeah, hormone regulation, again, that those fat is very important for hormone regulation, for men and women. And the endocrine system is just so important. And it's just totally, you don't hear about vegans talk about their hormone levels and things like that, or sexual function very much, and it's really silly because everyone knows that you can't feed a child vegan. You know what I mean? Like, there's people that are trying, unfortunately. It's really sad. And there's even stories in the news of poor children passing, due to their parents, being psychotic, in my opinion, at that point. And so it's like, okay, it's not good for kids. Why would it be good for us as adults? And where else in the animal kingdom is that? I mean, maybe I think there's certain animals, certain reptiles that, they eat more bugs when they're younger and then go more vegetarian when they're older as adults, like bearded dragons.
bearded dragons.
Yeah, but other than that, don't really hear about it in the animal kingdom. So it's like, for some reason, we believe, which we are, we're a special animal, but we're not that special. Do crows change their diets from when they're chicks to when they're adults?
Yeah. Mm, pretty sure.
From eating from their mother's mouth to getting their own food.
Right. Right.
And so I raise ball pythons now, and I have to feed them rats. And if I feed them anything but rats, they'll get sick. I can't feed them carrots. I can't feed them lettuce. It's not
Yeah,
going to work.
a lot of animals specialize in one type of food.
Mhm.
Some animals only eat only one plant.
Right.
So it's not really too surprising to think that human beings specialize in eating meat. And uh, it not only is it not unusual in the animal kingdom, but it explains how we got big brains and more compact digestive tracts. I know we're always seeing like these posts where people are like showing teeth, and they're like, oh, these are the teeth of a herbivore and these are the teeth of a carnivore. But then you look at a gorilla's teeth next to a tiger's teeth and you're like, wolf looks for an animal that spends all day munching on twigs and leaves, those some pretty ferocious looking teeth. And then they talk about our digestive tract, and then they're never talk about the fact that we have this tiny little vestigial cecum, whereas the other primates that sit around munching on leaves and twigs all day have a gigantic one for fermenting the plant material into fatty acid chains. Whereas we've got a upper intestine, a small intestine, which absorbs the meat and the fat very quickly, after it comes out of the stomach. So we have evolved that way, as well as developing a shoulder for throwing and hips for walking upright, the white sclera of the eye, the of drastically less body hair, more subcutaneous fat. We went through quite a few changes, and somehow they suggest that we're supposed to be herbivores. That we're supposed to be munching on vegetables and fruits all day. Yeah, if we do that, our teeth fall out and they're full of holes, right? So, you know, and when we look at some of the largest, strongest, healthiest specimens in the human world, we see that they're meat eaters. There's no mythological vegan tribe out there, right? And most of those people that eat a lot of starchy tubers or whatever to get by would much rather be eating meat. And believe me, people ask them all the time if you don't, so we hear them make examples of the Hansa or whatever. And then you go ask the Hansa people if they'd rather be eating. And they're like, well, we used to hunt elephants, we used to eat elephants every day, but we can't anymore. So we eat this. We nuts out of this tree, honey from here, and occasionally a badger walks through town or something, but that's all lost on the plant-based community that's so desperately trying to prove the fact that we're supposed to be plant-based, when in fact we are hyper carnivores. We're the apex carnivore of carnivores, as demonstrated by the nitrogen isotopes, the trash pits of our ancestors, the fossil evidence, the cave paintings, the on and on and on and on.
Yeah, no one ever did a cave painting of a broccoli.
Right? Broccoli, a weird sort of a man sort of invented food from the mustard family, right? A lot of people are shocked to find out that all wild potatoes are toxic to human beings, right? Things like cassava that make up a large part of the diet for other populations, again, has to be detoxified in order to eat. So how do we learn to detoxify potatoes and cassava and stuff like that with no pottery, no heat? What, we just found some magic way to soak it and cook it and everything? And no, we clearly just didn't evolve to eat that stuff. It's just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point there. We were hunting before we knew how to regularly make fire. So
yep, we were clearly hunting long before there's any evidence that we'd mastered the use of fire. We followed woolly mammoths into Northern Europe as the Ice Age set in, before we had apparently started using fire. So go figure.
There was a Wim Hof before Wim Hof that was breathing in that icy cold.
Yeah, right. There was a whole bunch of Wim Hofs just Wim Hofing their way behind herds of woolly mammoths. For sure. And then they, they even built their homes out of the mammoth bones, made their clothes out of the hides, and so on and so forth.
Here we go, Tom. That's our ticket. Mammoth Hut Real Estate.
How about just a restaurant, the Mammoth Hut?
The Mammoth Hut. There you go. Instead of Pizza Hut, Mammoth Hut.
So anyways, there's a better conversation to be had out there, and it doesn't need to break down into tribalism, right? We'd like to get rid of those binary arguments. I don't, you could look at just the shall we say, viral therapy issue that's going on right now. I'd hate to see that divide our community, much less anybody else's community, right? Or sometimes you see nose to tail eating erupt, which always elicits our favorite question: which animal has the best tasting nose? Oh, we're hard pressed to find anybody who's eaten any animal noses, so nobody knows which noses taste the best. So
my guess is on aardvark, but I'm just going to throw that out there.
Could be an elephant. You never know. There's a lot of nose there. Just saying. Of course, talking about eating elephants gets you in trouble with just about everybody because they're so cute, But
I'm not eating monkey. That's kind of my line. It's too, so anything with a thumb, I just don't think I can do it.
I'm trying to play my monkey sound. It's not playing.
Apologize to those that are having headphones tonight while listening to this.
Was it too loud?
It was quite loud.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's the loudest one.
My apologies.
Just one more point. We identify our trigger food. So like, I have a primal barbecue sauce that has pineapple in it, and it's got, a bunch of spices and stuff like that, right? It has 7 grams of carbohydrates in like a tablespoon. What? I know, insane, right? Like, slap my hand, take away my carnivore card for sure. Me and Tom have been known to have the occasional French fry, especially if it's cooked in duck fat. But here's the difference. A, it's not every day. B, if it was, we'd get very sick, or at least I know I would. And C, we don't have the addictive part with food. We can eat a French fry or 5 and walk away from it and be totally fine.
Especially since they get cold and then they taste like poo-poo.
Right. So we're not, everyone's afraid of this whole dogma thing. And I go back and forth with this. On my personal channels and things like that, I am more dogmatic because it is so important for people to go that 6 months to a year of pure meat, pure carnivore, to really feel that healing for their body to truly detoxify. And then they can kind of have a better idea of what makes them sick and what they can tolerate better. And most people that go that solid year, even if they leave carnivore, they're soon to come back and are desperate to get that feeling.
I don't necessarily disagree, but at the same time, when I'm trying to help somebody, I try to meet them where they're at. So a lot of times, like your people, they start in, they go cold turkey, they're just eating meat, and then they don't feel good, they're tired, the digestive issues. So you could always help somebody ramp it up, right? And then they can kind of bypass the whole adjustment because, some people are just, they want to jump in head first. They're what do you call it? They're diehard, right? They're like, I'm gonna do it right from day one. And other people are like, what am I getting into here? Why do I feel like crap? Or I still got to function somehow, and I'm really tired. I've got diarrhea or whatever it is. So yeah, no, I think that carb addiction aside, there's a place for people who just ease into it. I see that all the time. Everybody's like, oh man, you got to do this, you got to do that. And it's like, you got to up the game or whatever. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What if you ease yourself into it? Maybe you back off you eat meat 3 times a day and a little bit of what you're used to, and then you back off the stuff you're used to. I typically tell people, eat the meat first, have a little bit of what you're used to, but then ease that out so your digestion gets, so that your metabolic machinery gets adjusted to eating the new food, right? Because you've been eating the same thing for 30-40 years, and all of a sudden you just take a left turn. Of course it's going to be uncomfortable, and not everybody's
Right.
into discomfort, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, that's totally, a transition period is necessary. It's difficult to parse that out, but a little, 1 cup of white rice, maybe with some ketchup on their steak, as much of a sin as that is, again, making it palatable, seasonings, that stuff's good.
Well,
Maybe
I mean, ketchup on your steak, I got my limits. I'm just saying.
Having the fine, ketchup on their eggs. How about that? Is that better?
Okay, if they're overcooked.
And trying to stay away from processed food. So like, no donut, no cereal. I would recommend. There's no easy way to ease off cereal. Cereals are so addictive.
Well, let's say you're used to eating salads every day, right?
Right.
And then you stop and you go on a meat diet. That's more like, that seems to be more like the problem people run into. They're used to eating a lot of fruit.
Mhm.
They just cut it cold turkey, right? So they're used to passing a lot of fiber every day, and then all of a sudden, not only are they not having carbohydrates, but they're not passing a bunch of fiber. And it's like, well, we could taper that off, right? Yeah. Not so much with the donuts.
Right. There's just certain things that, that's just has to go from day one, especially because that seed oil's in it, and that's a whole thing. And the sweet, and donuts are a sin. They truly are. But I think milk and cheese are good substitutes for people that are milk. There's no craving that can't be solved with milk, cheese, or bacon.
That your triad, your go-to?
That's my triad. Yeah, milk, cheese, or bacon. Yeah,
of
or
course,
heavy cream.
The milk and the cheese both, sometimes have their own sort of craving or whatever. And so, we're talking about dairy, so it's a minefield. It works for some people, not others. There's all kinds of different kinds of cheeses, and they affect people differently. And milk in its core is obesogenic, right? I mean, it's got carbohydrates and fat, so it easily triggers Randle's cycle and all that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's better. It's like, I'd say you're better off eating a hot dog than eating a Twinkie, right?
Yeah, right.
Because there might, some hot dogs might have a tiny amount of sugar in it, but it's nothing compared to eating a pastry or something like that, right?
And people get hung up on that. They're like scared to buy the bacon because of nitrates and like has 1 gram of sugar. Yeah,
and most of that's gone by the time you cook it, right?
Right.
So I mean, if you're eating bacon that tastes sweet, okay. You're talking
Maple
about a
bacon.
different kind of bacon. I know, I went over to my friend's house and he was cooking up a storm, and he's like, "Here, try this." And I'm like, "Oh, what is it?" He's like, "It's candied bacon," and it was like just dripping with sugar. I was like, "Well, that might be a little off the reservation for me."
Yeah, so watch out for that. Jerky can be tricky as well. Store-bought jerky. If you can afford it, get a dehydrator, make your own jerky. If you need snacks and things like that. The thing is a lot like a lot of diets, it's about meal planning. At the end of the day, it's really about meal planning, meal prepping. Hey, if you've got to cook up, let's say you eat 2 pounds a day of meat a day. If you have to cook up 6 pounds Monday through Wednesday, then cook another 6 pounds for Thursday through Saturday, and then maybe you can eat out on Sunday or something.
I can cook several days worth of food just in the amount of time it takes to go through the line at In-N-Out. It's usually wrapped around the block now.
Right. And with the right planning, you can do this. I always tell people, in the beginning, because this is what I did, this is what I had to do, is fill the fridge with more meat than you can eat in a day. And so make sure you've got a couple pounds of burger patties, maybe a pound of bacon in there. Eggs, you can't really, I mean, you can hard boil eggs, but I'm not a big fan of that. Maybe you could have some deviled eggs and put them in the fridge and they'll last a little longer.
Well, I scramble up like a whole like 18 pack of eggs in you know, well, it takes me 2 pans to do it, but you know, and then they're ready to go and I eat some. Usually that goes with breakfast, but sometimes lunch. So, and they last in the fridge, no problem for me for a week.
Okay. Yeah, I did. I haven't tried that. I always thought it was kind of weird, but maybe it's something I'll try. I don't know. I like fresh egg. I like fresh hot eggs. It's like,
Yeah, well,
once they go cold, they're just not.
You work from home, you bastard.
I do. I am lucky. Right. You know, grill up some steaks, have them in containers or cut them up like Tom does. You know, Tom, how many pounds of steak do you take to work?
Probably like two-ish, you know. So something like that. So I try and eat some breakfast. I'm not a big breakfast guy, so I eat something at home. That I take a glass dish with a locking lid full of steak with me to work, and sometimes I'll take some Braunschweiger with me or sliced turkey and stuff like that. They travel well. They're compact. Put them in the way. I got a mini fridge at work I share with somebody. And I just carry all that around in a backpack. I got a waterproof backpack that's pretty well insulated. I put some ice packs in there. Take that stuff with me. If I want to leave some at the office, throw it in the mini fridge. Works out good, saves time, and I'm not driving somewhere to buy fast food and lunch or whatever. You know, I got more time to myself. So you have a giant bottle right in your camera. Right in front of you.
Forgot that was there. Thank you.
Yeah, we're actually recording a video right now in case you forgot.
I did for a second. And with all else fails, there's literally nothing wrong with driving through that McDonald's or whatever your fast food of choice is. Wouldn't recommend Del Taco or Taco Bell. But
hey, I did pretty good with the Del beef burrito in a bowl. It's just seasoned ground beef and cheese. It was pretty good. Everybody was hating on it, but I didn't have a problem.
Driving through and getting a la carte patties, maybe some bacon and cheese.
Seems like a lot of people go to Wendy's for that.
And when he says a lot of people, he's talking about me because I'm constantly going through.
Well, it comes up. I see it in posts all the time on Facebook, and it's mentioned in videos all the time. People, I guess Wendy's is a I don't know. Maybe there's just a lot of locations, right? I don't know why, but Wendy's seems to be popular for that.
The Baconator. You can't go wrong with the Baconator. No sauce, no bun, lettuce wrap, or no bun at all. It's bacon, cheese, and meat. It's all you need in your life.
There you go. Yeah. The pillars of Justin's diet.
Yeah.
Right.
It really is. It really is.
So what else?
I
was going to say, what else can we do to elevate the conversation?
Just keep this going. I mean, just continue to elevate it, you know, and taking comments, taking questions, tearing down the occasional bad article or bad product that's come out, and fitness, you know, adding fitness in there too, because once you start feeling better, you get the urge to exercise. I think it's weird that I mean, I know there's some people that under time constraints, or, you know, if you're a mom to 4 kids, like I get it. You ain't got time to lift. You're lifting kids. That's your exercise. But
it's a thing.
When you feel good, you know, add in that exercise exercise component is another very important step. You know, that, you know, so there's argumentation on how important it is. But it is important mentally, physically, you know, and
well, like I'd like to say is, you know, the diet is like 90% of it. Once you get the diet right, you realize, oh man, I feel so much better. I could do so much more. I feel like doing more. It's like I was talking to a friend about family member, and that family member works out, has a coach or whatever, you know, a trainer, but that person seems to hate their workouts, right? So It's like, I would change it up. I would find something else to do, screw this, whatever this trainer is that it's having them do, have them change the workout or get a different trainer and start enjoying it. Why punish yourself? And when you're on the right diet, it's so much easier to go to the gym and find something that you want to do, or not even go to the gym, go hiking or walk your dog, or, whatever it is, chase your cat up a tree. I don't know what you do, but
Take the snake out for a walk.
Take the snake for a walk, right? Just saying. But yeah, get the diet right, and then the rest will come,
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you want to move. You want to not just sit there and zone out on Netflix and stuff like that, which is still fun, but you feel even better doing that after really killing it in the gym or nice walk or a hike or something, And I feel like another part to keep tackling is just the social aspect of the diet, because that is still the most difficult part of this diet. Many of us carnivores live with other people that are not carnivore, or that are not even keto. And so for a lot of people, their biggest temptations are in the house. Where's the phone call coming from? It's coming from inside the house, right? It's like the scariest thing. And so that's really hard for people, and navigating that, especially in the beginning, can be really tricky. And, my hat's off to those mothers and wives that are cooking for kids, a husband that may or may not be on the diet, and, cooking one of their favorite meals, whatever that used to have carbs and rice or something like that, or a vegetable or something sweet, or baking, and just sitting down and having a steak or some ground beef for yourself, and rest of the family looking at you like you're weird.
Yeah, well, my girlfriend has been working a lot of hours because the holidays coming up, and she had this 4-cheese macaroni with bacon sort of thing that needed to be cooked. It was getting close to the expiration date, and she had to go to bed. She had to get up. She had to be at work like real early. She had to get up at some ridiculous 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Sometimes she gets up earlier than that. And I was like, you know what? I'll bake it for you. So it happens because she's not a carnivore. She's not even carnivore-ish. She has cut back on. She doesn't drink soda anymore. She doesn't eat a lot of sugary stuff like she used to, but it's her diet's completely different than mine. And that's how it is. I live in a house with other people, and is it easy? No, I get it, how it's challenging for people, especially since people have a lot of strong cravings and stuff like that. I don't know. For me, it wasn't that tough because I was so in so much pain and stuff, and having so many problems that I was ready for whatever alleviated that, and made me feel better. So that made it much easier for me. So that, and I started in keto, and keto had all those crazy cheat foods and fat bombs and fake bread and shit, which I kind of tried it here and there, but it never seemed worth the trouble. It's kind of like I went out and tried that. We were talking about that earlier, that the
Stevia.
yeah, Zevia, the soda with stevia in it. And I was like, I bought like 4 different flavors. I tried one of each. I was like, no, I'd rather just not drink soda. I didn't like it, but lots of people love it. I mean, even people
I think it's good. I like it.
Even people I knew who couldn't care less about cutting down on sugar like this stuff. And I was just like, nope, it tastes nasty to me. I'm not going to drink it. So here you go. I just spent, $25 on soda. I'm not going to drink. So here, it's all yours. So yeah, so takes a little personalization to the task. So maybe if you're out there trying on your own, just reach out and ask somebody who's already done it, or find a coach or something, carnivore coach or low carb coach or something like that. Give you some help, give you some pointers, give you some encouragement, give you some recipes.
Yeah, and I just wanted to piggyback on one point you made about being in so much pain. One thing, I believe we make this clear, but I do want, anyone that ever, I doubt this would ever happen, or maybe it does happen, but that looks as like, oh man, how do they stay so consistent? How are they always on it? You know, they seem to really, really enjoy carnivore. Go back to our story, listen to my migraine. I should do a migraine part 2, my migraine stories.
Yeah.
And no, people, and I can't stress this enough, me without carnivore, me eating standard American or even vegan, having keto treats, something I've not made for myself, me changing any of this drastically in that way, I'm disabled. I cannot function. My migraines are so bad. My body's in so much pain that I can't hold a job. I can't get my own, I can't cook, you know, I have to take really, really strong medications that knock me out. I get sinus infections that need antibiotics. Like I'm not functional if I'm not carnivore. Like it is a difference of practically life and death, being able to eat this way or not, you know. And so it is personal when there's silly politicians or corporate interests talking about, oh, we need to limit people's meat. We need to cut back. We need to add these extra taxes to meat. You know, you're attacking my ability to live and function in the world. And I am going to be dogmatic about fighting back against that, because I've reached health. I'm not perfect health, don't get me wrong, and I'm not perfect in the diet. You know, I'm 90%, 98%, what have you, depending on how you count. But I've found function, and you know, you can pry this steak from my cold dead hands, basically, is where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it'll come to that. I mean, there's some pressures. I forget, what was it, Turkey or something like that? They were talking about a national vegetarian diet or something, because it couldn't have been Turkey. It was some other country they're having severe financial problems, and they think that that's going to save money one way or the other. Something it was going around on Instagram or Facebook today. So, I mean, there could be some sort of top-down official policy like that, but I think at the end of the day, it's probably not going to happen. They're going to try and do it. We're just going to keep fighting it. And, you know, I think people are going to realize that when you take meat out of the diet, things start going to hell, you know? So our biological machinery evolved to eat meat, and there's very, very good science to back that up. You know, and it goes way back. And of course, all the science to prove otherwise really hasn't washed out. So,
and on that note about, you know, making sure to have a good meat supply, do the best you can to support local. I know me and Tom are not the most shining examples of supporting a local rancher.
how dare you?
I personally try to do it with eggs. That's my contribution is eggs. I try to buy local eggs. You know, I'm sorry, $30 for one steak is that's out of my price range. You know, I'm just not able to do that at the moment. You know, hopefully one day, if I was able to, I'd be all over it. But if you get the hankling, or if you can afford it, or if you do know or cow share, it's another awesome way.
You're just rich.
Or if you're just rich, I may, or you know, the other part is if you can, which in some respects might cost more money, get some grazing land, you know, put a couple cows on it, you know, and I'm gonna try and raise a cow this spring with the help of my aunt. So, you know, they're not going to be here on the balcony on the 4th floor. I'm just going to have this cow hanging out. Although I wouldn't be opposed. And yeah, try to have a meat supply that you're close with, that you build a relationship with, that you know what they feed the cow, how they treat it, etc. And because we want happy cows, despite what vegan or what activists might tell you, that we're killers and torturers and terrorists to these animals. Happy cows make for good meat. Sad and abused cows make for bad meat. So it's even in our best interest that to have our food be treated well, with respect, well fed, antibiotic and hormone light, if at all, and disease free.
So do you go any plan to flavor the grass there on the family farm?
Nope, still haven't come every time I talk to my aunt about it, she keeps changing her story about it. Like the last time I talked to her, she's like, oh, it's because I didn't grain finish them. That's why the meat tasted weird. And I was like, okay, then how come before you told me it was the grass? Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Well, it probably is the grass, and maybe it does, because the grass there tastes a little different. One of the ways to get whatever chemical it is in the grass that flavors the beef, maybe they feed them something else, or maybe just give them some alfalfa or something, finish them off.
Yeah, and now I did have some beef from Texas, some ground beef, and it tasted, there was a hint of the taste from the meat that I got from the ranch, from the family ranch. So it is something about this area. Maybe I just have to get used to it. Maybe it's just because I didn't, like I said, it doesn't taste bad. It just tastes strange. And it could have to do with the grasses around here, compared to California. That's the best way I could describe it. Because I feel like it tasted more earthy. I don't know. It's like,
well, and we kind of almost touched on a subject that will sort of elevate the conversation, because one of the things that, people have been led to believe that, cows are bad for the planet. So, and then there's the option of grain fed versus grass fed. But now we know that people can raise cows and fatten them on grass with modern regenerative agricultural practices without grain. And it's really a matter of managing the cows and rotating through the pastures and putting other animals on the land. So that's a way to elevate the conversation and get people to realize that cows really don't destroy the environment. In fact, in places like where I live, where we have very seasonal rain, very limited seasonal rains, one of the ways to prevent desertification of the land, the existing prairies turning into deserts or whatever, is to put animals on them so they move the water around, right? And to keep the plants alive so that the land can actually hold the water, and the water actually percolates through the land into the aquifer where the water is stored underground, rather than running off and washing the soil off and wiping out the topsoil and on and on and on. So that's a nice way to elevate the conversation too, right?
Definitely. I think we've elevated the conversation as high as it can go tonight. What do you think, Tom?
What are you trying to say?
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, why don't everybody leave us a comment on how they try and elevate the conversation. I know a lot of us don't really want to get into an argument with somebody.
But just be curious, just ask questions.
Yeah, be curious, ask questions, present alternate information without trying to divide everybody, whether it's in your own community or in a somewhat opposing or adjacent community.
One of my favorite go-tos is just the vitamin C argument, that glucose and vitamin C compete for the same transport through the body. So my anti-orange juice argument.
There you go.
Favorites.
Yeah, and I was mentioning, a lot of those fruit juices, they say they're full of antioxidants, but metabolizing all those carbohydrates in there creates more oxidative stress than the antioxidants could ever undo. Anyways, this is not that just because there's antioxidants in the juice means that it's going to do you any good, right? So,
right.
Clever marketing. So, anyways, yeah. Maybe pass the link onto this video to someone else who will enjoy it, because that help us grow the channel. We really appreciate it. And until next time, eat some meat, feel better. And whatever you do,
Don't
Don't
fall
fall
down
down
the
the orange
carb
juice hole.
hole.